It was the early 1800s, and Presbyterian minister Sylvester Graham believed Americans had a big problem, not only with their bodies, but with their souls. He argued that having too much was feeding their lower desires, making them immoral, and too focused on sex. To stop this corruption, Graham and other strict reformers pushed for food they believed could control many kinds of appetites. After the American Revolution, things like heavy alcohol use were more and more seen as stains on social order and civic virtue in a growing nation. The 19th century Christian temperance movement encouraged staying away from alcohol, eventually leading to federal prohibition. But some branches of the movement promoted even harsher restraint in every part of life. These reformers had some special areas of interest, including the bedroom. According to Graham, even divinely approved marital sex could become harmfully excessive if it happened more than once a month. And like certain Enlightenment philosophers a century before him, Graham considered the so-called solitary vice of masturbation even more dangerous. He claimed it inflamed the brain and drained the body's energy, causing everything from nervous disorders to stunted growth. To deal with this issue and others, Graham recommended measures including plenty of sleep, on hard mattresses, regular bathing, with cold water, and fresh air, even in freezing temperatures. But one of his main points of focus was diet. He thought Americans were consuming rich, flavorful food and drink that threw their bodies out of balance, weakened their self-control, and stirred unchristian passions. So, to calm their supposedly overactive sex drives, Graham advocated for a vegetarian diet of whole grains, fruits, and vegetables. And it needed to be bland, with no pleasure-stirring spices. To speak of, his signature contribution was Graham bread, the forerunner of the Graham cracker, made from coarse, whole wheat Graham flour. He shared the recipe for free, encouraging everyone to bake their own. It was simple. Just add water or milk, yeast, and maybe a pinch of salt. Nothing that might overstimulate the senses. Presenting himself as a public health advocate, Graham wrote books and gave public lectures, claiming his diet would even help people survive a cholera outbreak. However, not everyone was so eager for his moralizing message and tasteless food, including angry bakers who protested outside his talks. And transcendentalist scholar Ralph Waldo Emerson doubted the fanaticism of Graham's movement. One newspaper reporter is said to have mockingly called Graham a philosopher of sawdust, pudding, and an outraged critic of the Graham diet said it consisted of swill, starch, slosh, and dishwater. But Graham also inspired devoted followers who became known as Grahamites. Meanwhile, Graham's focus on digestive health appealed to people like nutritionist James Jackson, who ran a health spa in upstate New York. Around 1863, Jackson began baking crumbled, granulated Graham flour cakes into a cereal he called granula. And in the 1890s, John Harvey Kellogg, head of another health spa, developed cornflakes by steaming, rolling, and baking corn into a similarly flavorless food. While Jackson was mainly concerned with preventing illness through diet, Kellogg continued Graham's crusade against masturbation. He called it self-abuse, linked it to all kinds of ailments, and also promoted a dull diet to calm overactive sexual appetites. But the foods these men made popular would change shape far beyond their original forms. Granola and cornflakes went through a series of sugary and frosted reinventions, and decades after Graham's death, the National Biscuit Company began mass-producing Graham crackers with lighter flours and stimulating sweeteners. By 1927, people had started sandwiching toasted marshmallows and chocolate between Graham crackers, which the Girl Scouts named some S'mores, and the s'more was born. The rich dessert was basically the opposite of Graham's vision. And perhaps the greatest ironic twist to his legacy.